All right. So again, hi, everyone. My name is Ashley Pop. I am our head of projects and development here at Cause Inspired. We're really excited for you to be joining us today and being a part of the Cause Inspired family. We're honored to partner with so many incredible organizations, including Matt Davis, who's on our call today. We're excited to introduce you to Matt. He's the founder of Current Marketing. Their mission is to help nonprofits tell better stories by leveraging StoryBrand, so you can confidently market that to your crowd and see real results. He is a certified StoryBrand guide and copywriter. He's worked extensively as a consultant to multiple nonprofits. He's been a board chairman for an organization where he helped to promote brand awareness and realign company objectives to grow their social media audience to 2 million followers monthly. He's also led marketing initiatives in the nonprofit sector that delivered creative campaigns to support fundraising efforts for building projects in excess of 3 million. So today, Matt is here to walk you through that 7-part framework for what's essential for creating powerful nonprofit stories. During this workshop, he will cover the fundamentals of storytelling and which stories you can use and when, so that you can transform your supporters and energize them to join your cause. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Matt to lead this webinar. And so Matt, take it away.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate you. Hey, welcome everybody. Good to have you here. I'm going to make sure that I'm just going to share screen real quick and get the thumbs up that everything is working all right. Is it? Can you all see that?
I believe so.
All right. Good. That's always the fun and scary part. All right. Hey, would you in the chat just give me, tell me where you are at right now, where I was going to say in the country, but I also realized that some of you might be in different parts of even the world. So would you just drop that in the chat so we kind of know who's here and where we're coming from? Lovely. All right. All over the place. Quite a few Florida. I love it. I love it. Wonderful. And as you're doing that, I'll let you know, I'm a California transplant, just like everybody in the last few years. And we finally made our dream. My wife loves horses and I like bourbon. So we found ourselves in Lexington, Kentucky, which is a great spot to be, beautiful and green right now. And I am a nonprofit founder and executive director of my own nonprofit, as well as working with StoryBrand. And what I love about nonprofits is that I believe that nonprofits can and are changing the world. And I find that most of us, we've started with a calling and a mission, and we wanted to do some good in the world. And somewhere along the way, this all became very complicated. It got a little bit foggy. And we realized that there is this necessary thing that takes place in running a nonprofit, that in order to do that, you actually have to have some form of revenue. And so what I want to be able to do today is to be able to give you a framework for how to tell the story of what your nonprofit is trying to do in the world. But I also want to just give you, this for me is a little bit of inspiration. And it's a great quote by a guy named Frederick Buechner, and he says, "Vocation is the place where your deep gladness meets the world's deep need." I don't think any of us got involved or got started in a nonprofit because we were just trying to get really wealthy and get the boat off the coast of Florida. But really what we did was we had a deep urging and we actually find great joy in what we're doing and found that there's something missing in the world that we can offer. And so if we could, I see all of the different places that you are from, but could you then also in the chat, would you just drop, what is the mission of your profit? What is the deep need that you are meeting right now? Just gives us a sense of how wide an array. What are the things that you're doing? If it's just a quick one-line mission statement, or we are serving, we're digging wells in Africa, whatever that might be, would you drop that in the chat as well? And we'll just get a sense of where we are and who we are. I love getting to see all of the Cause Inspired family that I've gotten to work with. Great people here as well. So good. Make sure nobody struggles with or dies from addiction crisis. I see a couple of those. Seniors, people with disabilities, ovarian cancer awareness. Yeah, this is the good in the world. I love it. Hard as Nails Ministries. I love it. Disabilities, older adults, improving social support for young adults with cancer. Wow, it's amazing. Providing programs on the work of Carl Jung. Ooh, I want to talk to you about that. I love Carl Jung. All right, cool. Keep doing that, because I'm going to ask the Cause Inspired team to save these, because I love to see. I'm always shocked and surprised at what the actual needs are in the world. And then, man, there are people who are taking care of it. We had a tornado run through Mayfield, Kentucky, in my state, just a year or two ago. And we went there and found that there was a group that was there. And they found that when there was an emergency, disaster in the world, that we were able to get food out, but not really good, healthy food. And so there's a guy who just took it up, his mission. He goes to all of the disaster centers that happen in the country, and they bring healthy, quality meals. And I just thought, man, that's something I would have never thought of, but pretty amazing. All right, well, let's do this. This is StoryBrand, and StoryBrand was started by a guy named Donald Miller. And Donald Miller, after writing several books and memoirs, really found that there is this element in the world called story. And we all have a story to tell. Right now, when we're talking, as we're interacting, our stories have intersected and are forever changed. And the story that you are telling that shows up is really the compelling piece that is going to draw people in. But most companies, most nonprofits waste an enormous amount of money on marketing. If that is you, if you've ever unfortunately wasted money on marketing, would you put a yes in the comments? And if not, then say no. I'd be fascinated to see that. Yes, we got lots of yeses. It should just light up with yeses. I've done that. And I continue to do that. And what I find is that as I talk with a lot of nonprofits and companies all over the country, all over the world, they're always a little bit hesitant to do anything having to do with marketing, because there's a fear that, hey, we dropped $10,000 on this and it didn't work, it didn't help. And so now we're very reticent to do anything. And so we have companies that will start some kind of marketing project or campaign. They'll build a website, and in the end, they have something that might look pretty, but is not very clear. So you've probably seen like a website that looks like this, and you'll see something like, your journey starts here, artisan, innovative solutions. And one of the fun things that we like to do in the StoryBrand community is we'll take a screenshot of a company or nonprofit's the front page of their website, just like this, and we'll say, let's take a guess as to what it is that they do. And you can see this is pretty. There's a nice picture there. Your journey starts here, but what is the journey, right? Is this a Sherpa company? Is it off-roading? Is this a hiking club? We have no idea what this is. So we want to be very, very clear about what it is that we're telling. And sometimes we sacrifice clear for clever, and we want to be cute, and we're not really telling the story. And yes, Sophie, it is an awesome game. If you ever have a great one, a website that you found, it might actually be yours, then send that to me, because we love to play that game. But what we find is, and just so you also know, this presentation is for companies, but we'll certainly apply this for nonprofits. But people buy products only after they read words that make them want to buy those products. Let me apply that to us as nonprofits. People will only donate to your mission once they've read words that make them want to donate. And so this is what we have to understand about story. We have a brain, and your brain is always trying to do two things. Number one, survive and thrive. And number two, conserve calories. Your brain doesn't want to work too hard. In fact, the stat goes that the average human will spend about 30 to 40% of their day daydreaming. If you have teenagers like I do, I have 3 of them, they spend far more daydreaming. But what happens with that is that we're putting our brains on a kind of treadmill. And I want to just give you a little bit of a story. Let's say we have a bowling ball, and I give the bowling ball to this guy. Let's just call him Don for Don Miller. And I'm going to say, here, Don, I want you to hold this bowling ball. No problem. Hey, Don, I have another bowling ball I want to give you. And I said, okay, I can handle this. Now, Don, I have one more bowling ball I want you to hold. And I'm going to give all of these to you. Eventually, it gets really difficult. And the more bowling balls we give to him, eventually what's going to happen is he's going to drop them. And sometimes we get so excited and we have so many things, especially if you're leading the nonprofit, if you're doing marketing or messaging for your nonprofit, we have so many things that we want to talk about that eventually we get to the point where we have lost people. They no longer want to hear, that moment where they start to, you just see that they've checked out. And so what we try to do is undo all of that. Let's keep it simple. And so we live by this phrase, if you confuse, you'll lose. My past life, I spent 20 plus years as a teaching pastor at a mega church out in California. And we used to have a saying, if there is mist in the pulpit, then there is fog in the pews. And so if I don't know what it is that I'm saying, if I don't know the story that I'm trying to tell, there's absolute certainty that all the people that I'm trying to communicate with are having the exact same problem. So what do? We actually tell a story. Why do we tell stories? Because stories are sense-making devices. If I can actually tell a story, think about the last time you saw a really great movie. If it's a really great movie, then time flies. You go through 90 minutes, 2 hours, like it was nothing. You say, I can't even believe that went. But it's a bad movie when you start to realize that time is passing. When you're stuck in a good book, that's a great story. And so what Donald Miller has done is he's looked, and story has been around forever, but really great stories have certain things in common. And so what Donald Miller did about 7 years ago is he really put together the StoryBrand framework. And this StoryBrand framework is a messaging filter that we're going to basically identify. We have 7 parts to this story. And the story goes that there's a character or a hero of the story who wants something. But that's number one, they run into a problem, they meet a guide, the guide gives them a plan, calls them to action, points them towards success and away from failure. So I want to walk that through, and I want you to take this and run it through the filter of your nonprofit and what you're doing. So this is the picture that we will walk through. That first part is that every story has a character. That character is the hero of the story. And what we say is that when you agitate a customer's desire, they enter into the story that your brand is telling. So there has to be a character who wants something. And one of the things that we talk about is an aspirational identity. Who is it that they want to become? What is it that they want to do? If they're looking off into the future, if they're looking with vision, what is the thing that they are aspiring to? I like to say a lot of times what we're trying to do is tell the story of transformation. The easiest one is a weight loss company. What they do constantly and what they do really well is they will show you a before photo and an after photo. And they know that you're currently living in your before photo. How do we take you from the before photo to the after photo? So there is a character or a hero who wants something. The second part is that they have a problem. They're stuck. They need something done. They can't do it by themselves. And I want you to think of this in terms of great stories, great movies. Luke Skywalker is the hero of the story, and he needs to defeat the Death Star. Think about Frodo. He has the ring, and he has to get it to Mordor, but he's only a lowly hobbit. How does he actually get there? And so we have to talk about the problem, and then we have to agitate it. And what I find with a lot of nonprofits is they say, well, we don't want to be really negative. We don't want to talk about the bad thing. Can't we just focus on the good? Problem is, if we don't talk about the problem, then people stop paying attention to the brand. Now, think about this. If you've ever seen The Bourne Identity, we have Jason Bourne. Think about this and watch this next time you see a movie. what we do is continually, and talk to screenwriters, they continually introduce, like every 5 minutes, there's a new problem. Watch 007. There's always a new problem. But imagine Jason Bourne waking up on a Saturday morning, and he gets up, he walks downstairs to the kitchen, says, I'm going to pour a cup of coffee. And we have a couple minutes of him making coffee. And then he walks outside, he has his dog, and he's thinking about running a marathon. He's not really sure, he's throwing the ball. I mean, it's cute for a couple minutes, but eventually, like, what are we going to? Like, what's the end of all of this? And so it's a different story when you come downstairs. Like, what if you come downstairs on a Saturday morning and you see something just crazy? Like, there's a full-on mess in the kitchen, and you hear right outside the back door, some kind of animal or critter just ran out. And you're like, well, what just happened? Right? There has to be some kind of problem. If there is no problem to be solved, if there is nothing at stake, then there's no reason for anybody to be able to pay attention. And so we have to dig in, and we have to figure out what is the problem that's getting in the way. And we do that not only just exposing and looking at the problem, we look at what is the actual problem itself. We call that the external problem. We look at the internal problem. How does that external problem make me feel internally? And then we have a philosophical problem. Why should it not be like this? Right. So I just worked with Tempur Sealy, the mattress company. They're here in Lexington. And you can take an external problem, like it's really hard to get a good night's sleep if you have a bad mattress. But the internal problem would be that in the end makes you tired and cranky, and you're not able to perform during the day. And our philosophical problem would be something along the lines of, you shouldn't have to have another bad night of sleep, right? So we're looking at the problem, we're agitating it, and we're connecting with the problem that our hero wants. What does the hero want? They just want a good night's sleep. And so how do we actually solve this problem? We need a guide, right? We have Obi-Wan Kenobi, and we have Yoda. We have Gandalf, who comes to the rescue. And you have to remember that the customer is the hero of the story, not your brand. So when we run into brands that are saying, like, we have, 3 generations, my great-great-grandfather has started this, or, and there's nothing wrong with showing some authority, but what we want to do is, as a guide, and your nonprofit is a guide, you have to do 2 things as a guide. Number 1 is you have to show empathy. We get the problem. We understand. It's hard to not have a great night of sleep. But not only the empathy, you have to show authority, that we have the ability to help solve this problem for you. And I'll be really specific once I walk through this of how this applies to nonprofit, because I know that you're probably thinking through, like, okay, what is this? How does this apply to what I'm doing? But here's the best illustration that I have when it comes to looking at our roles as guides. And it's actually stolen from a TV show back in the 80s called West Wing. And they tell a story, they say there's a man stuck in a dark, deep hole, and he's yelling for help. And people would walk by, they would hear the man who was stuck in the hole yelling for help, and they would just keep walking because they didn't know what to do. Well, one day there's a man who walks by, hears the guy in the hole yelling for help, and does the unthinkable. He actually jumps into the hole with the guy who's stuck in the hole. Well, that man who was already stuck in the hole looks at the guy who jumped in and said, what did you do that for? Now we're both stuck here in the hole. The guy who jumped in, he said, I've been in this hole before, and I know how to get out. In that one statement, you're able to show empathy. I'm willing to be in this space in the bottom of the pit with you, and I'm also going to show you the way out. And when we're able to do that, we're going to be able to win advocates, people who are going to be champions for what we are up to. So what we need to do next is give them a plan. One of my clients was a custom home builder. And when you build a custom home, there's about 1,000 steps that you need before you actually finish building the home. But you have to be able to show an easy step-by-step plan to move forward. And if you don't, then they won't do it. If you make it very complicated and say, well, first do this, then do this, then do this. And we have like, oh, well, there's so much to do. People are just going to get confused. They're going to drop all the bowling balls. They're going to say, I'm just going to go find something that can help me solve my problem in a much easier way. And so what we do, and even in the world of nonprofits, what we're looking for is somewhere around 3 to 4. What are those entry points? What are those next steps? It could be go on a trip with us and see firsthand. It could be, hey, make a donation. It could be volunteer, but we don't want to overwhelm them and say, here are 1,000 different things. I'm going to keep moving. Next, we need to call them to action. And unless you clearly are calling people to action, then they won't. I remember one time I was speaking down in Laguna Beach. There's an area there called Leisure World. It's an older aging community place where folks are there and they have services and all kinds of stuff to be able to help them out. But I remember as I was speaking and I'm on stage, the fire alarm went off and I'm speaking and everybody's looking. I think most of the time when we hear fire alarm, we just kind of don't do anything, and they weren't doing anything. I kept speaking and I realized like maybe with this community, with their walkers and wheelchairs, we should probably mobilize. And so I said, hey, I'm going to pause right here. Let's move. And it wasn't until I said, let's go, I had to call them to action that they actually got up and they left. And it was the slowest evacuation I've ever seen in my entire life, but it was what got them to move. So we need to call our people to action. Donate today, join the movement, right? Become an advocate, whatever that thing is, and want to be very clear. That call to action is the button on your website. It's usually in the top right-hand corner. We have to make that accessible all throughout. And so figuring out what is it that we're calling them to, become a member, adopt a child, whatever that is, we want to be absolutely clear. The next piece is we want to be able to point them towards success. Our donors, they want us to cast a vision of what life looks like when they have joined in with us. One of the companies that does this better than anybody else, just go on to, if you've ever heard of the Sandals Resorts, go onto their website, watch their commercials. They are painting a picture of success. They're painting a picture of the promised land. They are advertising and promoting to people who are tired and in need of a vacation. And what they're doing is they're showing you the most beautiful, pristine beaches on earth. They're showing really good looking tan people that are sitting by the pool. And the couple that's there are always walking down the beach and they're holding hands, not like some of my past vacations where I was on one side of the pool and my wife was on the other and we're maybe in a fight. Sometimes that happens, right? They're not just eating a meal, but the chef is there and throwing stuff on the grill and fires erupting. They're not just dancing, but it's everybody's dancing and they're having fun. We have to paint a picture of what will life look like after engaging with us and what we're trying to do. So paint that picture of what success looks like, but we also have to talk about failure. If there are no consequences, if there's nothing at stake, then there's no reason for people to really like, hey, if this is important, we have to be able to really spell this out. And what we do is we talk about this in short term and long term. When we're talking about failure and pointing people away from failure, we want to be able to point out short-term failure, which means, hey, in the immediate future, if we do nothing, this is what's going to happen. When it comes to success, we can do both short-term and long-term. This is what will happen now, but if you follow us, if you join us in what we're doing, imagine 10 years from now, imagine what the next generation will look like in this community. So those are some really good ways. That is the framework. And when we put all of those different elements together, it creates what we call a brand script. For nonprofits, it's something a little bit unique, and it's there's very few of us in the StoryBrand world that are working specifically with nonprofits, but we have 2 brand scripts. And I want you to just think of a brand script in terms of, you might have, if you have a movie, a 90-minute movie, you'll have an entire script, and it could be 120 pages. The brand script is a movie treatment. It's what you bring into the producers to try to pitch the movie. It's not the whole movie. We're just taking a slice. But for nonprofits, we have 2 different kinds of brand scripts. One is a mission-based brand script, and that's where we are addressing the end goal of the nonprofit. So we are talking about this in terms of what is it that we are trying to do. The nonprofit itself is the hero of the story. We will also do what we call a donor-based brand script, where we are looking at the donor themselves as the hero of the story. And now we're looking at who is it that they want to become as a donor? What are the problems that are getting in the way, right? So we might be saying, like, you want to do good in the world, but from your seat right there in Florida, it's kind of hard, especially when you see all of the other hurt and pain that's going on in the rest of the world. We have a way to come alongside you and help to give life meaning, to help you to free up funds, to be able to direct them to go somewhere. So we're looking at brand scripts both from a mission-based perspective, where we're all about what is the work of the nonprofit itself, and then from a donor-based perspective. And so to look at all of this, when you're looking at the StoryBrand framework, we want to ask questions that are surrounding the framework. When we're looking at our customers, we're asking the question, well, what is it that our customers want? From there, what are our customers or our donors' external, internal, and philosophical problems? How do we answer that? Have we positioned our brand as the guide to the hero, or have we put ourselves as the hero? Have we created a clear plan for the hero to find success, to win the day? Are our calls to action absolutely clear? Are we telling them exactly this is what we want you to do next? Or does that feel kind of muddy, and do we feel scared to ask that? Have we helped our hero imagine how we can improve their lives and showed them success? And have we identified the consequences that we are helping our hero avoid? So we put all of that together, and online, StoryBrand is created. If you go to mystorybrand.com, there is a little template that you can use to be able to go through that and direct. But I also want to just give you something that is specific that I use really with all kinds of nonprofits. And the first thing is trying to determine what kind of nonprofit you are. And we have 4 categories of nonprofits. You may have been in a nonprofit or an executive director of a nonprofit for a long time, but really never thought of yourself in these terms. But how do you actually message the story of your nonprofit? And so I want to give you 4 categories. The first one is relief. If your nonprofit is a nonprofit that is giving relief, I want you to think of this in terms of giving someone a fish. If you are bringing relief to a group, then the stories that you need to be telling should focus on the difficulty of the situation that you are trying to bring relief to. If someone needs medicine, your nonprofit exists to give them medicine. It's short-term help. If they need to get out of their country and get into a safer place, then you exist for that. And it's a relief. We got to bring that relief. If they need a shot, we get them a shot. So when you focus on the problem that you're solving, you will be able to raise more funds to bring that relief. Now, some of you are not in that relief space. You are in the development space. Development is different than relief. Instead of giving someone a fish, you are teaching someone how to fish. So with nonprofits working in development, you're not just giving the medicine, but you're showing a community, hey, this is how you take care of yourself. And if you're in development as a nonprofit, the sad and impossible, the really difficult stories no longer work. You actually need to tell stories of transformation and happiness, stories of overcoming. What does that look like? And when you see a sad story 20 times in a row, your brain can no longer handle it. You have this fatigue, and our brains turn off. Our brains have to have space in order to. So we want to keep our messaging hopeful if you're in the development space. The third area is empowerment. So not just give a fish, not just teach someone how to fish, but teach someone to actually think about fishing. So this movement from development to empowerment, it really begins with helping a community create their own sustainable ways of improvement. So it's not just digging the well, it's teaching them to dig their own wells. It's not just giving them books or building a classroom, it's empowering them to become teachers. Like development, though, the sad and impossible stories, they don't work to motivate, they exhaust. And so how do we focus on the aspirational identity, right? So who do these people want to be? What does success look like? And if you paint that picture for your supporters, then they will become advocates for your mission. The last one is justice. Justice is a different kind of nonprofit altogether. Justice is not giving someone a fish. It's not teaching someone how to fish. It's not teaching someone to think about fishing. You have to tear the fence down that is around the pond. And so if your nonprofit is bringing justice to a community, then there is usually an immediate injustice that needs to be overcome. But we also have to look at a systemic long-term that really people, they can't live in this harshness forever. So think nonprofits in the human trafficking space. Think about nonprofits that are unlocking slavery. They're looking at racial inequalities. But when you're in the justice space, you can tell stories that are painting the picture of both the bitter realities and the tragedies of the situation, but you also have to show success of what happens when that injustice is overthrown and dealt with. So one of the groups I work with is actually based here in Kentucky called Refuge for Women. They have 11 residential houses around the country, and they are working with women who are on the streets, working as prostitutes. They're getting them off the streets. And that's the initial, like, we've got to solve that initial injustice. And then they're taking them, putting them in residential houses and giving them opportunities to find different employment, to heal, to deal with the trauma. So we have to be able to do that. So if you're looking at all of these, you have to really be cued into what is the story that we are telling. And that needs to show up on all of your marketing collateral, whether that's your website, your social media, the emails that come out. And in all of this, once we really have that brand script, the story that you want to tell, then it does get fleshed out. How do we tell that story on our website? And we position every piece of the story so that as somebody is looking on your website from top to bottom, that story is found, and that we are getting agreement as an organization so that we're all telling this story in the same way. But unfortunately, way too many times we have stories that just end up being very, very confusing. Here's just one of those websites, Equify Asset Services, realizing confidence in your assets. I have no idea what this is about. The more, now that I've even pointed this out, like, you'll start to see, like, I have no idea what this company is about. Here's another one, 5 ways we make your company stronger, right? So we work closely with business owners to greatly improve their cash flow standing, protect them from risk. So we have to be very clear, but you can also see there's probably way too many words on here. And we find that people don't read websites as often as they will actually scan websites. So what is it that we can do to really create clarity and tell our story in a compelling way? And so what we say is, if you confuse, you'll lose. And that is really all things StoryBrand. We're all about telling the story and pulling it together. I do believe nonprofits are changing the world, and we love to come alongside them and to be able to say, this is a better way to do that. You've probably seen StoryBrand has worked with anything from the 2020 Olympics to General Mills, to Chick-fil-A. So we've been involved with brands all over the place. And so I'm with StoryBrand, and also have my own website here that I work alongside and come alongside there. So that's all of that fun stuff. I'm going to pass it back. If we have questions, that's what I'm here for. Is that right?
That is right. Yes.
All right. I'm going to stop sharing so I can see some faces here.
As people are answering, I am just going to drop this link in the chat in case any of you hop off early. If you are interested in partnering with Matt on this and strengthening your own storytelling, or really just want someone to guide you through this process, feel free to fill that form out and he can get in touch. But with that, anyone who has questions, you can pop it in the chat, unmute yourself and talk openly. We're here to address them.
All right, I see one. How do you navigate what format or platform media to tell the story? And I'm trying to find, Pamela, I want clarification just a little bit. I'm not sure if what you mean is, should we tell this story on our website? Should we tell it in social media or an email? My simple, easy answer is we got to tell the story absolutely everywhere. People need the latest stat is at least 4 touch points. They're going to be checking you out from all kinds of different places. It might be on LinkedIn. It might be on your website. They're going to look at Instagram, Facebook. Are you on TikTok? And that story needs to be consistent all the way across. Or does it even matter where or how? No, I think that we want to, as long as we have consistency and that message is clear all the way around, I think that that's going to be the most important part. But I'll say most people that the first spot that they're looking for you, they find you, is going to be on your website. I'll also say that is the beauty of working with Cause Inspired, to be able to leverage your Google Ad Grant and to write content. And I'm sure that you've heard this already, but to get content out there where you are answering questions that people are asking, and then that is pointing back to what you have going on. So your blog is a really good place to do that. If you have a podcast, that is a really great place to do that. But you're creating content, and you have to ask yourself questions like, well, people who are looking for me, what are some of those questions? What's the unique piece of knowledge that we have that we can be offering? We utilize absolutely everything because there's just different crowds all over the place, whether we're speaking in places. We have a podcast that's going out worldwide, and we find that there's different engagement depending on different topics. Some of it is a little bit hit and miss, and some of it you find like, oh, this is really resonating. But it is a lot of trial and error, and it's a lot of working at it. What else? Throw some questions out. And you can unmute yourself too, and you can ask questions. Is video the best format for storytelling? I think that when you can combine solid video, where you're, if a picture is worth 1,000 words, then you just take 1,000 pictures in a video, and how many more words do you have? I think when you can immerse that, but again, we actually will look at telling the story of our mission through the StoryBrand lens. So absolutely, I think video is phenomenal. You get the right music, you have the right storytellers, you get to showcase the people who went from, you get to tell the transformation of, this is what my life was like before, this is what our community was like before, and this is what it is now. This is what difference an advocate made in our life. And you actually get to see the people and the testimonials of what's coming through there. That's phenomenal. And I would say even better than that is bringing people along. So if you're going on trips to go visit those people, if you can get people in or volunteering to work, to do the work with you and your mission, that's going to be one of the best things. But it's important to not miss those opportunities to tell the story of what you're doing. All right, I see another one. Our young group, Carl Young, has a program tomorrow. If you've never been, okay, there we go. I see that, lovely. Noted, got it. My nonprofit provides solar light and chargers to those living without electricity. We work globally with many rural, impoverished communities. They need and appreciate our products and assistance. The tangible impact is great. But I'm wondering if you have any tips escaping the white savior narrative. Olivia, can you come up? I'd like to talk. I have a follow-up question.
Yeah, definitely. Our lights kind of.
Yeah, and so is this globally, or is this domestically here in the States?
We work globally and domestically. So we work a lot with schools in Africa for education. We have different program areas. So like providing light to people can really help them with just their daily life and also opportunities, especially for children. And then we also work locally with people experiencing homelessness in our local community in California. So we work with a lot of different organizations.
And is the white savior narrative something that you've actually been called or accused of, or is that something internally that is a fear?
I think it's more of a fear for me. My boss is like in her mid-30s, and I don't think she really thinks about that. But I guess for my generation, I know that's something that people my age are very aware of. And so I kind of want to be more preventative and like bring in donors who are younger in my age without them like kind of shying away from the organization due to that. That makes sense.
Good. So there's a couple things, and I'll say especially the media, the images that you use. We want to be able to, we can tell the story even like that. And so what I try to do and tell people, so I'm not a web designer, but I will try to inspire the people who are building the web designer that are that main picture that shows up. If you could do these, let me give you 3 really great tips, just even in building your website or what you're putting out there on social media. If you can, number 1, show pictures of what success looks like, you're going to be able to do that. And I imagine that some of the communities that you are working with are not just Caucasian white communities. They're going to be multi-ethnic. And so if you can actually show pictures of people making a difference in all of these communities, that's going to be fantastic. But you're also going to get to tell stories. I would be very intentional about recruiting people who are part of the solution, who are not just your typical average white folks. So if you can actually get people and you're showing these images of this is what it looks like when we have human on human helping out, but get those pictures. And then also just show us pictures of what success looks like, right? It's a little bit going back to the Sandals Resort piece, that what does that look like to be able to say, in the end, this is what we are offering. The last thing I would say is look at your website, do a very quick scan. One of the most fun things I get to do is just, I offer people just, hey, I'll jump on a call with you for 15 minutes and I'll just look at your website right off the bat and I'll give you a quick summary of what I'm seeing going on there. And sometimes the quickest thing, you could do this right after the call, and in an hour, you can change what your website says and looks by doing this one thing. If you can say, we cross out anything where it says I or we, and then change it to you can make a difference. Don't say we make a difference by doing this. We are doing this. We are changing the way that the world thinks about this, but say, how can we be donor focused, or how can we be focused on our mission? I think that will also change the perception. So it's not a do this one thing and all of a sudden the perception changes. Olivier, I'll just tell you that it's going to be that is a long-term challenge, and it has to be embraced from the top down in an organization. But it's an intentional move, and it's something that you need to be able to do over the long haul. Does that help?
That helps. Thank you so much.
Okay, good. I see something here. How can we tell a story without casting ourselves as the heroes and respectfully representing individuals in a non-stigmatizing manner? We want the audience to come away feeling positive, but we want the people we help to feel empowered. So I think that the best way to do this is you tell their stories. And if they're willing to tell their story, then even better. It was one of the situations that we had to overcome in the work that we've done with Refuge for Women. How do we actually ask women who were formerly on the streets to tell their story? Would they even want to do that? And so sometimes we had to black out their face or the image because they didn't want that to be seen. And there's some that were really open to just jumping on camera. So what we want to be able to do is, how can we have other people talk about us and not us talk about us, if that makes sense. Let's not say, hey, we have done this. Now, I think that it's incredible if you can put some stats up there. When we talk about empathy and authority, especially on that authority piece, you can show authority by doing a lot of things. You can say, as of today, you have like a ticker or a counter that's going, delivered 5 million solar lights. Right, we've raised or given away, we've built this many wells, we have helped out this many seniors, we've prevented this many suicides, we've helped this many babies, right? Whatever that is, you can put those stats out there. But if you get testimonials from people who have been firsthand recipients, you let other people tell the story of what you have done in their lives, or the experience that people have seen firsthand by volunteering and helping in that space. That will be a huge change in you trying to toot your own horn. Let me see, we got another one. What's the best way for a virtual nonprofit to solicit, collect, store stories that is easy for both constituents and nonprofit staff to use? Sometimes we'll just put a button on the website that says share your story. So how do we actually do that? If we've delivered some kind of service or product to somebody, we'll send up a follow-up email, or even part of our email list. We'll say, hey, if your life has been impacted or changed, it is intentional. All of these things about gathering testimonials, about collecting stories. And we just have a Google Drive folder that has stories, right? And we will categorize those: stories of hope, stories of transformation, life change, stories we want to never forget. And even if you're having regular, and I would encourage you to have regular correspondence via email. And I'll say one of the most important things that you can do for your nonprofit is build your email list. A social media following is lovely, but you are at the whim of the analytics, all of the, you could have only 2% of your full audience getting to see that. But I know that if I want my message to get across, that somebody has to delete my email out of their inbox, and they'll actually see it. So you have to continue to collect those. And as you have experiences, or as you've had success, or people get to rate you or leave us a comment here, those are the ways. But there are all kinds of ways to be able to capture those stories. Here's one from Dana. We serve seniors, people with disabilities, and family caregivers to meet basic needs. Give fish. You're already getting it. Also do person-centered planning to help them create their own goals. Teach to fit. I see where this is going. Also tell stories to make donors and volunteers the hero. How do you simplify messaging when you have so many different audiences? Sometimes what we have to do is, in the marketing space, we call them avatars, but we might have different audiences, right? If I'm building a website for a real estate agent, we have to divide that audience very quickly, and we'll have a splash page that says, I want to sell a house, I want to buy a house, because the messaging is different for both of those. For a custom home builder, we might have people who are older and they're trying to find their forever home. That's a much different message than people who are trying to buy their first starter home. It's very different than people who are trying to level up and they just got their big job, have lots of money, and they have lots of kids, and now they're trying to get the big home, right? So we've actually created landing pages, and we've actually done a brand script, or we've story branded for each avatar or each person that we're trying to reach. And you can do this through your marketing to be able to direct those specific ads go to those specific pages. You have a landing page that would have to be all encompassing and tell the whole story. But if you can actually get some sub landing pages, and especially I'm sure the cause inspired people, they're the digital experts, but they would probably back me up on this. If we have these different services or different offerings, that's going to help you index and get more SEO on Google and all of the other fun stuff. You'll be able to speak to those different audiences, but really drill down to that particular niche. But those would just be different landing pages. But I would take the time to StoryBrand. One of the projects I got to do was with Gillette razors. And when you look at Gillette, as they make razors, they're speaking to the audience of females. They're also speaking to the audience of males. And so we went through and looked at the entire company overall, but then we also got to look at the women's division, and I got to work on a project with the men's division. So how does that, even like with Temper Sealy, I got to work with the online marketing sales division. And they actually had a very different way of looking at it, because they're dealing with people who are just buying a mattress online rather than coming into the store and trying it out. How do we message to that? So all of those different niches are going to be able to really give you the specificity that you want to be able to talk to each group as they need it. And I see Pamela, same thing for us too. Wide range of audiences. So Great questions. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to come here. We'll wrap it here, but I'm happy to talk later off here, and you can fill out the form, and we can talk a little bit more later. And there's the link. So I'll shut up now, and hope to see you. Hope this has been helpful.
Great. Thank you so much, Matt. We've really enjoyed having you here today. Anyone who's been on here, you can use the form. You can reach out to me. You can reach out to Matt. But thank you so much for joining us. We will be posting this since it was recorded in case you want to reference it later or share it with anybody else. So, all right. I hope you all have a great day.